Welcome to the Tenet Podcast. I'm Todd Pearson here in Denver, Colorado, joined by my friend and partner, Wes Brown, in Rapid City, South Dakota.
The home of super spreader events like the Rush hockey games. Gotta love it.
You're winning.
We're winning. That sounds like something no one would say. We're winning.
Oh, my God. Yeah, interesting. Okay. We have a great podcast for you this week. Great episode. I constantly am friending people on social media. I look at art all the time, and like I said, friend artists. If I friend you, it's because I've kind of stalked you on social media and I've checked out your work. So if I friended you, it's because I like your work. And everybody that I try to get on this podcast, it's because I think they're an extraordinary artist. And the artist that we're talking to today is no exception to that rule. His name is Peter Yumi. He's a mixed media artist that is Denver based, and really happy to have him on today. Peter, how are you?
Great. A little cold today, but other than that, it's a nice day and just working in the studio today.
It is a little chilly out there here in Denver today, and but it is beautiful. The sun's out and shining, and it very much feels like a December winter day. Peter Yumi, that's your real name, right?
Peter Strange Yumi. That's my real name.
Peter Strange Yumi. Strange.
Yeah, it's not a. Oh, go ahead.
Is that like one of your parents' name? Do you have like a two name? One's from one set of your mom and one's from your dad. Is that the deal?
No. My nickname when I was a kid was Strange, and so I just made that my middle name.
Okay.
So yeah, I was born with a totally different name that I'm not going to say, but then I changed my name about 25, 26 years ago. And when I changed my name, everybody had called me Peter since the time I was younger, since I was a kid. And so I just changed my name to Peter rather than having to explain to people like, oh, that's not, when you do roll call and stuff like that. So just changed it.
That's kind of cool. I never thought about you. I should take that back. I did think of it when my current wife, Tonette, and I talked about changing her name because she really didn't want to take Brown as the last name. And she kind of, but we kind of joked around like maybe we should just come up with some brand new names, but we just never followed through. So I think that's awesome.
It's kind of a pain in the butt to do. It's probably more so now because this was pre 9/11 when I did it. But you had to like go to the FBI and then the Colorado Bureau investigation and then the police department, give them your fingerprints. And then you have to go before a judge and then explain why you changed your name. And it's a big hassle.
That is a big hassle. The fact that you have to give your fingerprints just as bizarre. Yeah. Like you're a criminal just because you want to change your name. I mean, I can understand like if you get out of prison, you want a new name. That's one thing, but to keep tabs on you. But so
it sounds like an ordeal. You didn't know anybody in the Russian mafia?
No, I wish they could have pulled some strings for me and made it easier.
Yeah, you probably needed to move to another country, change your name, and then come back. That would have probably been easier even.
Yeah.
Sounds like Jesus. But I do like the name Peter Strange. That is pretty cool. I like that.
A lot of people just call me Strange or Dr. Strange or,
nice.
But the only people that can call me Pete are my sister and a couple other people because Pete is really a form of moss. It's not a name. And so just prefer Peter. So.
Well, I had to ask you that question.
Good question, Todd.
Well, I was wondering if that was his nom de plume. So we are nearing the end of 2020, and it just feels like we've just taken it on the chin over and over again. The hits just keep coming. Are you pretty hopeful for this coming year, or are you a glass half full kind of guy?
No. I mean, I'm usually like just drink it, but full or until it's empty. But no, I honestly, I think just seeing how people are behaving the past year. There's been good things and bad things. But in terms of the masks, I think I'm just not hopeful in general. But that has actually been driving me to make more art. So just kind of my look at things. And, I don't want to, I am pessimistic about things. And so, but I think as time goes on, we'll see. But I just think that people a lot of times are making their choices based off of, things that might not necessarily be in the best interest of the collective of people. So,
yeah. Well, I've definitely witnessed that too. Yeah.
Going to a hockey game or, complaining about having to wear masks and yelling at clerks and people not wanting to take the vaccine or things like that. And so we'll see how things pan out, but there's not a lot I can do about any of that stuff except, so I tend not to think about it too much. So,
Well, I don't think that's being a pessimist per se. I think that's called being a realist, because I think, and your art, you respond to it as an artist, and I see it in your art. You make social commentary a lot of times with the pieces that I've seen, which I think is really interesting. And I think it's an important thing for, not everybody's going to choose to do that with their art, but I think that it's important that there's people like yourself that are out there producing art that makes some kind of a statement or, some kind of comment on where we're at as a society. I think that's a job of artists. And I'm with you. Like I always say that the glass is half full, but that son of a bitch could be kicked over at any given moment. So that's the kind of way that's the way I kind of look at it. I hope for the best, but kind of, plan that the worst could possibly or feasibly happen.
Yeah.
Is there anything that this year has taught you? Have you learned anything? Because I feel like there's a lot of lessons being learned by people. Is there anything in particular that, as you work in your studio, as you're creating, that you've kind of gone down this rabbit hole and go, wow, I never thought of that before, or that's a good lesson?
I've learned so much this year. And I think this year is where I've had the most growth as an individual, as a human being and as an artist. And one of the things that I feel like I've learned the most is that I just need to learn to relax and just let things go. And for the longest time, I just sweated all the stuff that was just completely just nonsense. And I thought it was important, or I thought it was a big deal. And this year I've just been kind of like, I'm not going to sweat that. There's not a lot I can do about that right now. I'm going to do what I can do. And, could I just get fired up about stuff that really had nothing to do with me? So, and then as an artist, it's weird because I hadn't really painted seriously until this year. So I was always doing a mix of like silk screening and toner transfer and drawing and collage, but I'd never really painted. And I just decided that I was going to paint every day, no matter what, during this year. So I've just been painting a lot and reaching out to friends and, asking how to do something with paint, but refusing to watch YouTube videos with showing me how to do a certain technique or something, only because I felt like I wanted to talk to other artists about how to work with paint. And in a lot of ways, I've been joking around with friends saying that I feel like a teenager who just discovered art for the first time, in their sophomore year of high school. And they're taking an art class and they're so excited about it because painting has kind of reinvigorated that feeling for me. I feel like a little kid when I get into my studio and I start painting and thinking about ideas with paint. And it's really been just this mind expanding experience in the studio, just painting and thinking about paint. So
do you find that artists are open to share their techniques and how they do things?
No. Well, it depends. I should create a spreadsheet or something for this that like lay it all out. But like some artists are very like wild animals. And, years ago, this poet named G.C. Waldrop, he told me, you should think of art historians as the zoologists and you are the giraffe. And they study what you do. That's kind of his approach to writing as well, is that he's a poet first, and then all that other theoretical stuff that goes with, writing and analyzing work, that's for other people to think about. But the job of an artist is to make art. And, there's a fine balance, but a giraffe rarely goes and, talks to the zoologist who's studying them. And so working in the studio, it's important for me to just really be an artist. And so I had these categories of different artists though. And there's like another one that's like an accountant, and a lot of painters are so good, but I could not relate and paint to the, somebody who does hyperrealism, and they have to be so organized in their studio and everything has to be so planned out and, just every little detail put together. And in my studio, it's a lot of what I do is intuitive, and I hadn't planned out a lot of stuff until like the last year and a half. Everything that I'd done previously had just been kind of going into my studio, and whatever came out of me that day was what came out of me. And about maybe 1 out of every 500 things I made was decent. And now every little step of every piece I'm making right now is planned from beginning to end. So, you meet other artists, though, who will share that kind of information with you about how they work. But I found that the accountant type of artists, typically, they don't like to share their techniques. And a lot of artists, I don't think as well, have understood where I'm at emotionally as an artist, because I'm an older guy, and they don't understand that mentally as a painter, I'm like a 15-year-old kid who just got his first set of basic acrylic paints at the art supply store and is getting ready to go to town on a little canvas that he bought. So they don't understand that I'm genuinely wanting to know, what is this thing that you're calling glazing and things like this, basic painting skills that I had no idea about. So it's been really eye-opening.
Yeah.
I bet that's been really refreshing. And so it sounds like there's been an evolution during this whole process as far as the way you go about approaching your work, that it's a little bit more, even though you're an intuitive artist and you see that, I can see that in your art. And this is what I love about your work, because when I see it, I see that you're just exploring a little bit of everything, whatever strikes your fancy. And I always feel like that is the sign of a true artist, somebody that's listening to what's going on inside their head, what's going on inside their gut, what's going on inside their heart. And wherever that wind blows you, you're willing to follow it and explore it.
Yeah. Even though I'm planning everything out now, I still kind of work in a lot of the same way. So I've got this ridiculous tablet that I call my prosthetic brain, and I carry it with me everywhere. But I'm constantly looking at image repositories online and just collecting them. And I've got probably, I think, 3 or 4 of these 1 terabyte drives just filled with images that I've found on the internet or scanned in here in my studio. And I'm just constantly collecting images to use. And then when I start working on stuff, amazingly, I remember stuff that I found like 6 months ago, like at a thrift store or something, and I scanned it in, and then I'll jump in and look for that image. But recently I started organizing everything by subject and colors, and a little bit more organized.
That's a process to organize your image library. That's time consuming.
It is. And I wasn't doing that a lot with my digital resource files, as I often start with digital sketches and digital work, and then transfer that over with a projector or other means onto a surface. And I wasn't even naming my Photoshop files. I would just type in blah, blah, a bunch of random, keys just to save it. And then I couldn't find any files that I needed from, previous work. And so now everything is named and dated and put into a folder with that month. And it really helps, though, because a lot of times I'll use a certain image that I had previously used and go back and kind of play with that way.
I think that's interesting that you keep this file of images that, of things that you've run across. I do the same exact thing as a photographer. I have a clip file, and, I'll rip pictures out of magazines. I could be sitting at the dentist's office and I'll look around and if they're not looking, there's something, interesting. It could be anything, I'm looking, it could be composition, it could be lighting, it could be the posing of a particular person, but it's just that one thing. So mine is analog, right? I had this whole like milk crate full of like torn out pieces of paper that I've accumulated over, I don't know how many years, a long time. And sometimes I'll look through them when I'm trying to get an idea for, something I want to do on a shoot. I'm not necessarily trying to copy it, but it's just generating ideas. Is that the same kind of principle of what you're doing as well? You're just kind of flipping through images. There's something that strikes you about it, and then you kind of make it your own. You just incorporate it into that thing that you're creating at the moment. Yeah.
I'm always taking photos while I'm out too. And for instance, a few years ago, I was at a nightclub on South Broadway with some friends. And after leaving the nightclub, across the street from the nightclub, there's this tile store, and a bunch of tiles with these geometric patterns were all laid out in the window. And I was like, instantly, I just got an epiphany from seeing that, and I photographed it. And that ended up becoming a sculpture that I made. And it's actually one that I'm remaking for a public works commission. And it was just seeing this image of these tiles in this window. And I instantly got the idea to make this sculpture when I saw it. And I was like, so I'm constantly just, I don't even try to look for ideas or try to think about that stuff. It just, a lot of times will just happen, when you're out and doing stuff. And you'll see something and all of a sudden you're, inspired to do something new. So.
Yeah, I'd imagine that would take some practice too. But once you get that to that point, it's nice because you're not having to actively think. You just see something and your subconscious knows that, okay, I want that idea for something. Maybe I don't even know what it is yet, but I love that. So my whole thing is I was actually looking for some kind of photo collection service that would allow you to tag photos like you can in, let's say, like Evernote, where you can make tags where I could put Todd or, Sunday and then find it. But like, you can do names or places, but you can't really tag like abstract or, yellow, Yeah. And that would be cool to do that. And there's probably something out there and I just haven't found it. But
I would love something like that too, just to organize all my files. And then I could you're right, just add tags. And then when I can look on a, local server in my studio and go, oh, there's that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Because a lot of times the way I work too is I've got a Surface Pro. And so I'll stand in front of the surface that I'm working on and I'll have the image in Photoshop on my tablet, and I'll draw and work on that with an image that I'm adding, and then I'll print it out and then immediately go and add that image into the work using a toner transfer, or I'll make a silk screen of it, and transfer that on as well. So, but a lot of times it slows down my process because I need a certain image and I don't know where it's at. And then I have to spend hours and hours looking for just one image. And it drives you nuts. So.
Right. Yeah. No, I can feel your pain. Done that too.
So you work in a multitude of different mediums. Tell our listeners all the different things that you do or that you explore.
I do photography, collage, now painting. I do sculpture, printmaking, lino cut, silk screening. That's about it. Oh, and I also noticed you have instruments in your background there. So I play music, and I used to compose music before I decided that I was going to make art all the time. So that was about 15 years ago that I decided I was just going to make art. So
what was the catalyst for that?
I was making a lot of videos that accompanied the music that I was writing. And I discovered that I was enjoying that more than composing and writing music. So I said, this is what I want to do. And there's some other stuff that really changed my direction as well. And it's like, but I think just the fact that I was starting to create video images to go with the music that I was writing. And I realized that I was much more interested in visual imagery than I was with sound.
So what medium did you start out with when you made that decision?
Photography.
Okay.
So it started off because I lived in central Pennsylvania at the time, and I lived on this little island in the middle of the Susquehanna River. And there was a field on the island that grew oats and barley. And I was watching the guy plow it one day, and I said, I want to make a long video taking a photo every day of these plants growing. Obviously, there wasn't a lot for me to do where I was living. So I set up a permanent tripod on that spot and photographed from the day he planted the seeds. And there's images of him, planting the seeds, and then every single day until he harvests it. And then that's the video. But the way I did it is, do you know the photographer? Well, he's not really a photographer. I guess he is, but Jason Sullivan.
No, I'm not familiar with him.
He's got stuff at the National Portrait Gallery in DC, and he had a big solo show at the Minnesota, at a museum in Minnesota. I'm not sure which museum, but what he did, and the stuff that he has at the National Portrait Gallery is video, but he took every opening scene, the first opening segment of the David Letterman show. David Letterman comes out, and then he layered all of those videos for 1 year into one video image. And it's really just absolutely beautiful. But at the same time, you realize like that David Letterman is basically doing the same moves every single night of the show. And so I started photographing that. And so I layered all of these images. So it started off with one image of the field. And then day 2 was 2 images. So by the time it all finished up, it was just this blur of all the images together. So I did about 20 of those of Amish working in their fields, of Amish crops growing, of covered bridges. And they were all just Jason Sullivan ripoffs. And then I just decided I don't want to do this anymore. And I completely just stopped making videos and photos like that. And I started working with collage, primarily because I was living in my van and I was driving around the country in a van, and I didn't really have a studio. So I just made art in my van and with whatever materials I could find. So, and that was about a year living in the van and traveling around. So that was 2008, 2009.
What made you decide to go on a year-long road trip?
Well, I got a divorce, and so I didn't really have much of a choice and it was right at the start of the recession, and there were no jobs. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to just do this. And so I just traveled around and stayed with friends or family sometimes. But I continued my practice as an artist and making stuff daily. And then I got an apartment here in Denver, moved back to Denver, and then I started working in this little apartment that I had and kind of figuring out where I was going to go with that. And it's really taken me, it took me about 5 or 6 years to really feel like I was having my own kind of voice going on and not making work that I felt like I was copying someone else's style exactly. So
what was that process like where you're trying to discover your own voice? Is it just trial and error, and then all of a sudden you start to see it?
Well, honestly, from 2008 to probably 2011, my work was absolutely horrendously horrible. And it was mainly horrible because of, the aspects that led to the divorce that I had. I was just a miserable drunk. I really didn't stop drinking until 2011. And so that entire time, my work, I look at some of it now and I'm like, what the hell was I thinking? And there's parts of it that are still in my work now. But as soon as I stopped drinking, that's when I was able to really start seeing myself clearly and seeing my mind clearly and seeing what I was doing clearly and really starting to form a healthier sense of self. It took a long while. And I feel like, it's something I honestly think that everybody should go through the process that people who are, recovering from drugs or alcohol addiction should go through, because that kind of just looking at yourself and self-examination, I think is extremely important, especially as an artist.
Yeah.
So did you go through some kind of structured program when you decided to give up drinking?
No, not at all. I just decided I wasn't going to drink anymore, and I haven't since.
Wow.
I went to some meetings, but it didn't really resonate with me, didn't work for me. A lot of the energy that I have in my studio, I admit, comes from just like saying, I spent way too many years of my life drunk or sitting on a bar stool talking about what I was going to do instead of doing what I want to do, and self-medicating with alcohol. And I just, I think that the best therapy for me has been really just focusing on doing something that I love and doing it wholeheartedly without a half measure, and it just working.
Yeah, I think a lot of people go through that where they talk about what they want to do, they think about what they want to do, but they never act upon what they want to do. And even, and this is going to be kind of trivial, but even starting a podcast, it took me 3-4 years this is what I want to do, and just trying to figure out how to execute it. And if it wasn't for Todd, may still be, I started one, but I may not be in the same place that I am now because of that. But, so I think a lot of people need to really self-evaluate and then be bold and jump into whatever they want to do and just go for it.
I think that a lot of people, they don't realize that there's all sorts of toxins that we can be addicted to, whether it's alcohol or drugs, but you could be addicted to crap, reality TV, or you could be addicted to, looking at garbage on the internet all day. There's a million things that require that kind of introspection of what am I avoiding by doing this? And so the sobriety has been a big factor in my art practice and helping me kind of evolve as an artist.
Right on, man. So you made this conscious decision yourself to just make this change.
I went out one night to see a friend's band at the Bluebird Theater, and I woke up the next day and I don't remember how I got home. And I was really ashamed of myself because I obviously had driven drunk, and I was so ashamed of myself and felt so bad when I woke up, and I said, I don't want to drink anymore. And I haven't drank since. And it's one of the best choices I ever made.
Yeah. Good for you. I think that happens a lot with alcohol. In fact, I just had this conversation with one of my children yesterday that some people are functional on it, but in the end, it is, I don't think it's a great way to go. I think it causes a lot of problems and pain in our society. And it kills me, the fact that alcohol is just generally accepted as the way to, self-medicate, and to, people say, oh, I just do it to relax or take the edge off. But come on, let's be real. People like it because they enjoy the feeling. They enjoy getting that buzz. That's why people do that stuff, right? It's been going on since the beginning of time.
Yeah. And it's so ingrained in our culture too, that's, what you do when you're stressed out or things like that. And instead of, especially, I think with men, it's important for men to understand how to process emotions, how to deal with emotions. And the first few years of not drinking were really rough on me. I felt like my skin was getting ripped off a lot of times because there was all these raw emotions that previously, when I would feel them, I didn't even know what they felt like because I'd been, drinking so heavily for most of my 20s, 30s, and into my 40s. So then I was like, okay, now I'm feeling anxiety. Now I'm feeling anger. Now I'm feeling stress. Now I'm feeling, jealousy. And all of those different emotions, they rise up, and you're like, wait a second, that's what this is. But not knowing how to process it and not knowing how to deal with it, really, I think, in retrospect, it might have been a good idea for me to go to a group. But I've reached out to friends at those times and been like, hey, this is how I'm feeling, just try to understand those things. And I think people don't even put that through their minds as part of why, the choices that they make.
I think talking with other people is a great way to process things, whether it's with your friends, like you said you were doing, and just being honest and real. Or, lots of people go to therapists. We've had an art therapist on the program before, and I think therapy could be a really great idea, having somebody that's totally objective and doesn't have anything like personally invested in your life that just kind of gives you a different perspective.
Yeah, I've got a fake therapist. And so I always tell people oh, my therapist told me I had to do this. I honestly think it might be an okay idea. No. But yeah, my therapist told me that I should give up the dream of being an artist. I'll say stuff like that.
Yeah.
So obviously, because you were dealing with this and processing or self-medicating with alcohol, and divorce is huge. Like went through a messy divorce myself, and I heavily self-medicated myself.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That was probably the lowest that I've ever been in my entire life, and made for interesting times. And definitely, I wouldn't change a thing, of what happened, because it, in one way, shape, or form, it was a learning lesson. I think everything happens for a reason. Did you have other trauma in your life, and has art been, kind of a therapy for you?
Yeah, it definitely is. I know that some artists think that, art is therapy or art for art's sake or things like that. They're always kind of get a little turned up nose about that. But I think that for me, art is a very deep and personal experience about what's going on in the studio. Like every little detail of what happens in my paintings is what we're talking about right now. And down to the colors that I use, down to the layout of the colors, down to the content of it, everything has to do with my own personal experience, whether I'm, direct about it or not. It's definitely my life. And so I don't try to hold that back. And a lot of times I end up not, taking a commission or something because I don't feel like the work, I could make it, because it wouldn't have anything to do with me. I've tried to make landscapes recently, and I can't make landscapes. It's not where my mind's at. And so.
Doesn't resonate with you. So you decide that that's not something you want to do.
Yeah.
I think that's an important thing too, is to realize when you're doing something that you don't necessarily, it doesn't resonate with you or you don't enjoy it, like making that conscious decision, even if you could make money from that work, just going, you know what, it's not my thing. Like I'm not even going to go there. Like staying true to your vision and your, that voice inside of you.
Yeah. Yeah. And the stuff that I have going on with my work right now, I think people, if they knew what I'm doing with the colors and things like that, they probably think I was absolutely bonkers, because there's this entire weird theory about it. So I oftentimes just don't even tell people about what the intention is, but I've been using the same color palette for 3 years. The main colors that I use in it are blue, yellow, and green. But the reason behind that is this dualistic mind, this split of thinking, this way of having two minds, or as a person is riding two different horses at the same time, one foot standing on top of another horse, and the horse is going through, and you're trying to do the two mind type of things. But the real evolution of a person happens when that unity happens and you're of one mind, which is green. And so that's the main kind of tenet of what I do with my work. And then every color has these kind of symbolic meanings and a language that I have intention with the work.
Well, I think, even though there's all these theories and ways that people say that you should work, I think that's, you kind of hit the nail on the head there. And that's a sign of a true artist, when you just don't listen to it's crazy to think that art has certain rules, that there's certain rules and certain segments of different mediums or different art practices. And I think the true artists show through when they just throw all that shit out and they just listen to themselves and do what they feel is right. And I can guarantee that, when people do that, it resonates. You're not going to resonate with everybody, right? That's one of the things I think you learn as you get older, is that you're not going to always be everyone's cup of tea, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you don't worry about that. You just do the work and it'll resonate with a segment of the population. And those are the people that you want it to resonate with, right?
Yeah. Who are some of the photographers that you look at?
So, thank you for asking that question, actually, because that's the first time on this podcast that anybody has ever asked me that question. So I love, I'm a huge Albert Watson fan. Mm-hmm. I love him because he is it's all about light. I mean, photography is about light, and he's a lighting technician. And so I have taken a lot of cues in my work from, lighting very specifically and having a thought for the way that I light. Some people light in a way that they call it their style. I've been accused of not having a style, but I feel my job as a photographer, it's not to necessarily impress my vision on my subject. The subject dictates the way that I light. Mm. I want to tell a story. And in order for me to tell a story, I got to get the fuck out of the way of that and figure out how I'm going to relate who that person is.
I love that. So it's more like a rule set, though, that kind of keeps your kind of own biases out of something in a way.
Right. As soon as I decide that it's about me, then I'm not going to, I'm going to lose my audience. I'm not going to convey what I'm trying to convey. Mm-hmm. So I got to get, I won't say that there's not ego involved because I pride myself on being a craftsman, but at the mm-hmm. same time, I got to get the ego out of the way so that I can tell that story. And as soon as I insert myself, I'm the observer, just like the person that's going to view that photograph. Mm-hmm. And so, I want to tell that person's story. That's what I do.
Love that. Love it.
I also I'm a big fan of Irving Penn. I'm looking at my big bookcase of photo books, and a huge fan of Helmut Newton.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I love his photography, and he's since passed, but I love what he explored, and I think his photographs are beautiful, and they tell, their own story. And then I love, the photographers of, kind of that era of Cartier-Bresson, the street photography, mm-hmm. the surrealistic movement. I gravitate towards that. A lot of black and white.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think one of the photographers that I'm always looking at is Walker Evans. I'm just always looking at Walker Evans. And, Walker Evans is almost like a Norman Rockwell. Like you'll hear a lot of photographers that turn a nose up at Walker Evans because his work is I think it's so popular. But I just love looking at his Depression era photos. And on the National Archives, there's a complete collection of all of his photos that you can just peruse through, and some of them are scan negatives too. And so it's really just amazing looking at it, all of the work that one person did in his lifetime. It's great.
He's a great one for sure. I mean, there's so many amazing photographers. I feel like what's lost in this age of the digital realm is that I don't know that people. I always say this, that it's like the digital realm has been great because it's brought it to the masses, and there's a phenomenal amount of beautiful work that's being done. But at times I feel like, people need to spend some time, and we're showing our age, but, go to the library and pick up a book and look at the people that came before you. Like, you kind of need to know, you need to look at the work of the masters, just like you would if you were doing, if you were researching painting or, painters. Mm-hmm. You kind of have to see where it came from. And then, then you can set off on this path. One of the things that drives me crazy is that a lot of times people they'll go, how did you do that in Photoshop? And I'm like, it's not done in Photoshop, because that's not the way I learned. I learned that everything, I came up shooting film. So everything is done as much as I can. And I won't say that I don't use digital technology, because I do to the nth degree, or as well as I can, but I'm not using it the way most people use it. I try to compose everything and get everything right in camera. And then if it's something that I can't do, I know that I have these tools outside of that in the digital realm that I can achieve that vision.
Yeah. A lot of photographers, I think they do everything in Photoshop now, in Lightroom, and that there's not a lot of that just kind of magic that, used to happen with photography that's done in a studio with, lights and strobes and all sorts of stuff like that. But I think that the digital realm in general, and I might be completely wrong here, I love it. Absolutely love it. But I've been studying Delacroix for like the last year and really looking closely at his work and what he was doing. He was rejecting a lot of that kind of classical school that was going on at the time in Paris, where everything was rigid and very formal and kind of having fast lines and loosening things up. And I thought about what I'm trying to achieve now and how I want to kind of show intent and where things are coming from, because this past year, and I'm sure this is what it's been like for a lot of people during the lockdown, is that our ecosystem that we've been inhabiting has been a digital ecosystem. It's been online, and we've been kind of traversing the internet to build community and talk to people and look at images of other people's lives and share images. So it's just this weird kind of ecology that has really transformed our culture. And at the same time, I think having that tool and looking at it that way as this other kind of world that's just as valid as if I step out my door is interesting as well. And for a while, I completely rejected a digital approach to my artwork. Everything had to be done analog. And now I intentionally kind of show my process when I'm working too, so that people know what I'm doing, to kind of pull back the curtain to show the little tricks and things.
Yeah, I was just reading, I was perusing the internet, living on it. And they were talking about digital manipulation of images. And one of the comments below is, if you're doing that, you're a fraud. Immediately, I was thinking, well, I guess Ansel Adams was a fraud then, too, because he manipulated his images, but he did it in the darkroom, by burning and lighting and importing clouds into his photographs. That's no different. So I just thought that was, these purists sometimes are just get under my skin, because it's all about the artistic thing is all about my eye. And if what I saw in the moment may not have been what somebody else saw in the moment, but I'm trying to recreate that in the digital element, there's nothing fraudulent about it.
No, not at all. Not at all. Yeah. It's, I think having that purity with your vision is much more important and understanding that what you're doing though it's a tool. It's not the work, and it's just a tool to get your ideas out. Right. That I think is what a lot of folks are kind of missing with the idea of how to use different tools for the work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well said. You're right. I mean, digital is just another one of those tools that you have in your toolkit that you can pull out to accomplish what your vision is,
Yeah.
And I don't have a problem with people that, composite photographs in Photoshop. There's some amazing stuff that I could never do, or I don't have the vision for.
Yeah. I have deep respect for photographers that can do lighting so well. And for the longest time, I was trying to photograph models to make them look like Caravaggio paintings, with this like strong, hard shadows and everything. It's so difficult. And I just did not have the patience for it. And that kind of craftsmanship that photographers have with lighting, to me, is very similar to a hyper-realist painter, just doing these exquisitely detailed paintings and having the patience to really set things up properly. So it's lighting for photography is just a completely different part of photography that I don't know if I would have the patience for it.
Well, and I think that's something that was interesting what you just said, because there's things that you're doing multiple processes in some of these pieces to get where you want it to be, your vision, that a lot of people wouldn't have the patience to do that either. Right. So it's really, you got to figure out, and that goes back to the whole voice thing, is like figuring out how you work and how you're going to accomplish it, and what you're willing to do in order to achieve those results.
Yep.
Yeah. Even multimedia collage, that's can be extremely time consuming. And then pointillism, we interviewed a gentleman that does pointillism, and that would just I would die. And his stuff is beautiful, absolutely beautiful, but it was, tedious, and I can't even imagine. I know what you mean though.
I love talking with artists though, who are just so obsessive with their work. And that just makes me happy, because I know several artists who are just so obsessive about everything we do. And I just love it. And that's why I think I'm loving painting so much, is because I just love being obsessed about stuff. And so now I can obsess about mixing a color exactly how I want it. And it's endless, the planning that I do now. It's just fun. So
I think that's what's interesting about what I love about this podcast, because I'm always getting education, but also what's so interesting in talking with other artists, even if they work in other mediums that you don't work in, there's always this thread that runs through all of them. And even though you might not completely understand the process, you can appreciate it, and you can go, wow, that's amazing. I've never thought of it that way, or I've never heard of that before. And I can appreciate somebody that's a true craftsman and is absolutely obsessed with what they're doing.
Yeah. And I also know my limitations as an artist too. There's some stuff that I can't make. And so I have it fabricated for me, because I know if I were to make it, it would be sloppy and messy, and it wouldn't be up to my standards. So I have stuff fabricated for me. And if it wasn't for COVID right now, I might have even hired a friend to come and paint some stuff for me that technically I'm not able to, so that I could achieve a little bit more with the paintings that I'm working on right now. I just have to have her sign a document that said clearly she takes no credit, and this is not a collaboration.
Did that take a while for you to make that realization? The realization that at some point you're like, you know what, somebody else could do this better, and I'm happy to pay someone to do this. Like, I can give up the control, because I think there's certain things I got to have control over in my process. And I think it's hard sometimes to give up that control to someone else. Was that difficult for you to do that?
Oh, no, not at all. Because, for instance, a sculpture that I'm working on right now, I have a vision in my mind of what I want it to look like when it's finished. And I suck at woodworking. I make all my wood panels that I paint on, but those are really easy, But with the stuff that I want to be made, I wanted rounded corners on the boxes. I wanted all these soft edges, very explicit instructions for everything that how I wanted it made. And the guy that fabricates for me, this is the second time he's built the same sculpture for me. And his work is just so precise. He used to work at the Arvada Center as an art installer, and Clifford Still as well. And he's so knowledgeable about materials, and so knowledgeable about how to really make things, just absolutely beautiful. So I like working with him. So, and he does fabrication for other artists nationally, and everything that he does is absolutely beautiful.
That's a pretty glowing endorsement there.
Dave Seiler.
Dave Seiler. Okay.
Yeah. He makes panels and canvases and all sorts of stuff for people. And if anybody needs a fabricator, he makes stuff for people. He built this beautiful glass box for artist at Pirate Contemporary Art. That's the collective I'm part of, and not collective, but co-op gallery. And so he made this beautiful thing, and I had no idea, because he's also really discreet about stuff. Like, if you say, don't tell anybody you're making this for me, he won't tell anybody. So, which I like too, because sometimes, if you have a commission or something, sometimes people don't want, anybody to know that they're buying your painting or something, which I don't know why, but.
Well, I was just going to ask you that, and you kind of mentioned that the other day, that there's some projects right now that you're working on that you weren't really sure if you could talk about or if people would want you to talk about them. So
Yeah.
that was maybe the first time we've heard that from a private collector, so to speak.
There's sometimes people don't want people to know, that, especially right now, I think because of COVID, there's so many people that are struggling financially. And so some people are like, well, I don't want people to know that I'm spending money on this painting right now during this. Or they might just have other reasons for it. So I have no idea, but it's happened to me about 3 times. So.
Have you always had a vivid imagination? Because you seem like your imagination runs pretty damn wild, man.
Yeah. I used to. Well, I got in trouble in the first couple weeks in kindergarten because I remember walking to school and I was like, her name was Mrs. Smith. And I was like, I want to tell Mrs. Smith that we have a circus at our house in the backyard and my dad is a circus master. And so, and I kept insisting and she's like, that's not true. And I was, oh, yes, it is. And, so that when my mother came to pick me up, she had to explain. But yeah, my mind is always just like running wild with ideas. And a lot of times in the middle of the night, I'll wake up from sleep and I'll have an idea and then I'll come out to my studio and start working. And, because duty calls. So,
yeah. So you got a running narrative in your head all the time, it sounds like. And unlike most people that if they woke up in the middle of the night, maybe they would have like a journal that they write down these ideas and then they go back to sleep. You're like, boom, it struck me and I gotta ride this out. Like I'm gonna go into my studio right now and I'm working. That's the way you work? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm pretty much in my studio all the time, from the time I wake up until usually 10 o'clock at night. So sometimes about 14 hours a day I'm out here. So working.
So outside of work, do you have a very specific routine of what you do? Like what's a typical day for Peter Yumi?
I wake up and I eat a bowl of Cocoa Krispies, 2 bowls of Cocoa Krispies with almond milk. And then I feed my dogs and my cats, and then I walk my dogs. And then after I walk my dogs, I come back home and I drink coffee. And then after I drink coffee, I brush my teeth. And then I come out to my studio and paint. That's about it.
So you sound like you're a creature of habit, even in the time of COVID, yeah?
Yeah, I eat the same thing every day, and I do everything exactly the same way every day. So it's kind of like my thing. So,
are you a bit OCD?
It's actually CDO. You've got to alphabetize it. So,
okay.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. I wake up every morning during the week and have 1 egg and toast every morning. 1 egg and toast. And then I shower and then I get ready for work. So
you do that every day?
Every day, 1 egg and toast.
Yeah. I like having a routine because my mind is going so fast all the time, thinking about different things that I'm doing, different obligations that I had, all this different things. But I just like to keep all of the nonsense out. I don't want to think about what I'm going to want for breakfast. I don't want to think about what I want to have for dinner. I just want, it's easy. So,
yeah.
And
yeah,
I try to wear the same clothes too. So,
yeah, I kind of relate to that. And I don't, but I think of that Richard Gere in Pretty Woman when she opens up his closet and all the suits are the same color, the shirts are, and they're all equally spaced apart. And I was like, man, that's a freaking good way to go because you don't have to think about nothing. You just grab and go, you know?
Yeah.
And my wife irritates me now because used to I did most of the cooking. Now she does because our work roles have switched. And she'll, what do you want for dinner? And I'm really like, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. I don't want to have to think about it. Just do it. And I'll eat it, you know, and some days I like it, some days I don't. But even when I was cooking, I didn't like to plan it. I just tell me what you want and I'll cook it. So she's doing the same thing to me, but I don't like the peripheral thinking about bullshit that doesn't matter. I don't care what I'm eating. I mean, I like to eat. God, Todd knows that. I love to eat, but I don't want to think about it.
Yeah, to me, it's a nutritional supplement so that I can continue working.
Yeah. No, I enjoy eating. I like the process of eating. I like the taste of food, and my body shows it. I'm a little fat, but it's not from drinking. It's just from pure eating.
Wow.
I love to eat too much.
I have zero routine. My routine is, I'm not a routine guy at all. Which probably hurts me more than helps me, but it's just the way that I am. I think about routine all the time. I think I should do this. This is how I should lay out my day, but it never happens that way. And so I don't know. I kind of give up on it after. I won't say I give up on it, but it just doesn't strike me as something that I'm going to do. I probably benefit from it. I've never eaten. I never eat at the same time. So, and I eat really late. I should live in some place like Spain, where people eat dinner like at 10 o'clock at night. I've never had that kind of routine. And I actually felt kind of self-conscious about it for a while. And then I read Keith Richards' biography, and he was talking about, there's a story of him in there. He's like cooking up like something to eat like at 1 o'clock in the morning. And he's talking about, he's never had a routine. And he said the only reason there's a routine, like people have specific times where they're supposed to eat, is because that's how they train you to go work in the factory. And he said, I never wanted to work in a fucking factory. So I just threw that logic out the window.
That kind of makes sense though.
It is. Well, school bells, same thing. It was training you to go to the factory. It's very industrialized. I got 2 comments, Todd. And one of them is you should never try to live your life like Keith Richards because you're going to have a heroin addiction. And then number 2,
Keith Richards can.
I don't know how he's still alive, but he's been able to do it. And then I know that I drive Todd crazy because my stomach is ruled by the clock. And it's like, and he's like a snake. He could go like a week without eating. He'd be fine. But I'm like, is it 12? We got to eat. Todd, we got to stop something. I'm hungry.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
So I know I drive him crazy.
No. And I know that he needs food because if he doesn't get food, he's going to be a grumpy asshole. So it's like, we're going to go find a hamburger for you right now, dude.
That's right. And that's all I need. Just a hamburger. I'm like, Blimpy, give me a hamburger today and I'll pay you on Tuesday.
Oh, it's a weird marriage.
It is, but it works.
Do you feel a responsibility as an artist to comment on how ridiculous our world is and the society, the way society works? Do you feel like a responsibility to do that, to point out the injustices?
I consider a lot of my artwork social satire. And so, a lot of what I do is satirizing just everything in our world. I've been making up fake worlds to make fun of our world. And I'm a big Trekkie. And so I've developed this entire sci-fi world that I'm creating with these paintings about this fake planet where there's 2 different countries on it. One is called Autonation, and the people that live in the country are obsessed with cars and guns. And the other country is called Fruitland, and they produce all of these fruits, and they're exploited by the people of Autonation. And it's this incredibly complex way of making fun of our culture. But I use it to make fun of, sexuality and every level of it. And I'm doing another part of it where the people on this planet, they travel to another planet, the space archaeologists on the planet do. And they discover on the planet, all the people were killed by a gigantic volcanic eruption and buried under a level of ash. And so they start digging through the ash, and they discover that the entire civilization was based off of roller disco. And so they have I'm making these paintings that look like Pompeii ruins, the frescoes in Pompeii, but it's like roller disco parties of Pompeii ruins. And it just makes me so happy to think about that there probably is a planet like this somewhere that this event happened, because they say anything in all of the multi-universes is possible. So that means that there probably is a planet somewhere in the infinite number of universes that civilization was based on roller disco, and to not try to deny that. So
I love it.
It makes me happy to know that you're creating all this or documenting this.
Yeah, except I wanted to have a book that came with a lot of the illustrations, because I make little illustrations for all of these stories too. But I think I'm so horrible at writing. And so a friend of mine is a really good writer, and he's a really good storyteller. And I love just getting together with him, and he will just tell the funniest stories. And I think, you've got to write this into a novel, this story. And it's just like a trip that he had, and he's just a great writer. I asked him if he would write this story for this series of paintings I'm doing now. And it's about this. It is a true story. I'm not making this up. There was a guy named Jack Bonavita, and Captain Jack Bonavita, and he's a lion tamer at Dream City in Coney Island. And he ended up getting his arm ripped off by a tiger. So he was called, I call him Captain Jack, the one-armed lion tamer. And we're writing a book called Captain Jack, the one-armed lion tamer. And with a little tiny font underneath it, it says, and his wife. And I said, I want the whole story to be basically like Captain Jack is like this jackass, like Captain Kirk. He's self-obsessed and just like full of vibrato, and he thinks he's the best lion tamer in the world. But really, his wife, who's got her name in a little tiny font underneath his giant name, she's actually the master animal trainer, and she taught him all of his tricks and everything, but he gets in the spotlight and everything. So that's the story that we're working on right now. And we're going to make a book out of it and just have some fun with it. So I think the story is really kind of funny, the idea of it. So,
that is a funny story. So I'm looking at your Instagram page, and that's why I keep looking off to my right here. There's a painting of a woman with a guitar serenading the dude. Is that one-armed Captain Jack?
Yeah, that's Captain Jack and his wife. She's a princess that he met at the Moulin Rouge, and they're entertaining people at his Fifth Avenue penthouse. Yeah.
That's nice. Yeah, it says the one-armed lion tamer and his wife entertaining guests at their Fifth Avenue Manhattan penthouse. So Since I have this up, can you talk about this painting this? So it looks like it's taken from a photograph, and then is it screen printed over or painted over?
That came from a photo repository that I take images from online. I forget who the actors are, but I took that image, printed it out black and white, and then I do a toner transfer and then I paint through that. And then I'm not sure, but I'll silk screen or toner transfer halftone patterns through that too.
Okay, because I can see the halftone patterns. So what's a toner transfer, if you don't mind me asking that?
So toner transfer, you use a laser printer ink. You can't use inkjet. And if you put down glue or a medium on the surface, and then you put the paper face down on it, wet, when the paper dries, you then dissolve the paper off, and the toner will remain.
Okay. Yep. Now I understand where you're going. And is the pinks and blues and yellows, is that screen printed over the top of the toner transfer then?
No, that's painted.
That's painted. Okay.
Yeah.
It's really cool. I like that one a lot. And I love that. See, and here's one of those like art things that I never would have done. How you pulled the blue away from their face and her hair, like I would have never done that, as I wouldn't have never thought of that. So it's cool because I do like that because it's interesting. It adds interest to the painting. The fact that you went outside the frame of his face and pulled that blue across. And what is that about? Or can you explain it?
Again, it has to do with that whole language that I'm creating with the colors.
Okay.
And so I'm wanting the blue and the yellow to kind of cross and create this green or illusion of green, because the colors were dried when I pulled that blue across there. So it's not mixing. It's basically kind of glazing over the top of the yellow, and it's creating the illusion of seeing green. And I like that idea because then there's that unity of mind and this fragmentation of this color that's happening.
Yeah. No, it's beautiful. I love it. I love that whole, it's a great piece. So thanks for describing it for our listeners. And if you're listening to this, go to his Instagram page, you'll see it and you'll know what we're talking about. It's a phenomenal piece. Thanks for sharing that. I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. So since we're talking about some of your work, Peter, as you scroll through your Instagram, you easily see that a lot of your work has explored sex and sexuality, and some of it, some people might consider, verges on pornographic or is pornographic. What makes you want to explore that subject? Is it
well, I mean, everybody likes sex, and did you ever see that hit movie, The Wedding Crashers? That movie, that's a funny movie, by the way, but I saw that movie in Central Pennsylvania and at the Mall Theater. And at the beginning, there's that great scene where that woman is jumping up and down on the bed and she has her bare breasts bouncing. And when that happened during that scene, everyone in the theater gasped. Oh my goodness. Mammary glands. And before that, they had played some previews of different movies that were going to be coming to the theaters soon. And some of those movies were showing people shooting guns at other human beings and showing people punching other human beings. Not one gasp. And to me, that's pornographic. That I find that revolting, that kind of imagery. And so I think that people need to just appreciate sex more and appreciate sexuality more and not be afraid of it. And it's such an integral part of being a human being, just like food and water. And as Americans, we're just so hung up on sex and get freaked out about nudity. I just think people need to relax about it. So
it's crazy to me that in this modern society, and the fact that, porn sites make up the vast majority of internet traffic, mm-hmm. that sex is still a taboo thing here in America. It's one of the few places on the earth where it's still a big taboo thing. And it's so hypocritical, that we say, oh, that's a bad thing. But yet, and this is where I went with why I wanted to ask you this question, because I wanted to address it, but it's ridiculous. Everybody loves sex. Everybody is intrigued by it. It's what drives the world. It drives us as an animal population, right? As a species. It's how we proliferate. Yeah. And yet nobody in America wants to talk about it. It's totally different if you go to Europe or some, other country, they embrace it and realize that, yeah, this is just a normal part of, being a human, like you said.
Yeah. It baffles the mind though. And so to me, I like making images of sexual images. And I think that there should be more sex in work. And I don't know. I know artists that won't make images that have people having sex in them or sexual images because they feel like, they're going to get flack from people or something like that. And I think they should, if they want to make images of two people fucking or, whatever they want to do. I can say fuck, right?
You can say whatever you want. It's an open platform.
I just said the fuck word. So
you can say whatever the fuck you want.
Fuck yeah.
So, but yeah, you should do it. And but also I make a lot of images that have a lot of violent imagery in it as well. And I think, those are just as important too. It's just, sadly, violence is a part of our culture and part of the human experience as well.
Highly accepted. And here's an interesting thing when you were talking about how people are put off by sex. I think it was Larry Flint, or it might have been the publisher of Penthouse magazine, did an article, and I just read Penthouse for the articles, obviously. They put an article in one of the magazines, either Hustler or Penthouse, and they showed images of, I think, Vietnam or war in general and dead people. And they said, what's more obscene, the nudity or the violence that we, proliferate on this earth? They didn't use that term, but what is more obscene to you? And I think that's a great commentary. And I love the fact that you mentioned that. It's like, we're so more hung up on sex than we are on, massive guns in society killing people. Kids every day get killed from, shootings every day.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think though that as men and as a male artist as well, you have to put into consideration as well about representation of women and thinking about those types of things as well, because I think that the way that sex can be used in artwork too can also be a form of violence.
Sure.
And so there's a fine line of doing it in a way that, is also adding to a conversation or trying to, communicate something rather than just in a sexualized image. So that's the fine balance. Is like, yeah, I'm making an image of people having sex, but what am I trying to say with this? And a lot of the sex images are, again, that marriage of those two colors and that creation and that unity and creating this kind of unified mind. So it all goes back to that again. So
Sure.
In its most essential form, that union is what births life, and same with art, right? Have you taken flack for that type of work? Have people come down on you for some of those images?
No, not at all. I don't think that they're too risque, but some of them can be. But yeah, I can't even think of like one. No, maybe people just have their opinions, but they haven't shared them with me. But I'd like to know if they didn't like them. That'd be interesting. So
yeah, I'm curious, and I'd be curious to see, because I think the male mindset is a little bit different than the female mindset, as we all well know it. As middle-aged guys, in the topic of sex. So I'm curious what the female perspective is and how it's been received.
Yeah, I know some women that make some fantastic erotic art, and I really appreciate that when I'm seeing women making erotic art. It's a different approach to it than men do. So, but a couple of years ago, I had a studio assistant, and she's a woman, 22 years old. And it was great having her in the studio because she really, I'm making this image. She's like, why are you doing the body like that? Why are you doing it like this? And so she kind of challenged some of the way that I was, showing women in the work. So I appreciated that.
Now, her critique, was it just, she just didn't think it was a true representation, or?
Oh no, it was from a Hawaiian Tropic sunscreen tanning oil ad from the 1970s. And the image, she's this very like muscular kind of like beach girl body. And she suggested that I just kind of like blow her proportions out of shape and kind of distort her proportions more. And I asked her too, I was like, what do you think of this? And she's like, So, it's nice just having different perspective.
I'm always interested in how females perceive, whether it's a female photographer or art or painter or whatever, how they see the world, the feminine perspective. I think it's just interesting because I'm, being a male, I'm not always in tune to it. So I think it's interesting that, you had this dialogue with that assistant at the time and had that kind of conversation. I think those conversations are always intriguing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like the idea to just kind of understanding different. There's an artist that he lives in Brazil, and we talk often online, and he will laugh sometimes at just some of the absurdities because we're culturally so different. A lot of the things that I'm doing don't read as well with him, and it goes back and forth. It really kind of helps, expand your practice. So, yeah.
That would be an interesting discussion to have with somebody who's from a completely different culture and how they interpret it, because we'll interpret something a specific way, but it may not translate. And probably a lot of times it doesn't. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think that somebody, well, maybe not. I think roller disco was universal. I was going to say, I don't think people are going to understand the roller disco thing because they have to be American, but I think the love of roller disco is universal. So
it's a happy thing. Like, how could you not like roller disco?
Yeah. And seriously, I got so excited about the roller disco thing. We see all those TikTok girls doing the roller disco on the Instagram. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this roller disco thing is just awesome. It's just such a positive, happy thing. So,
yeah, you don't see any depressed roller disco girls, do you? They're not depressed at all. Oh, even the gentleman with the longboard drinking cranberry juice and to Fleetwood Mac. Happy day.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So the idea I want to do though is my next show is I want to have a big roller disco party outside of Pirate Contemporary Art, get a block party permit and a DJ, and then invite a bunch of people just to come and roller skate and have a good time, roller skating outside. And it would be COVID friendly. And, and then they can come inside and see the roller, it's called Rollertopia. They can see the Rollertopia ruins and explore that. So it'll be a really fun day.
Now, is this already in the works? Are you planning this for 2021?
Yeah, in the end of April. So I'm working on, I think there's going to be 12 of these paintings. And then I got a show in January that's psychedelic work that I'm doing with Elena Gunderson at Alto Gallery. So I'm working on that. And I've just about finished with the last one. It's hanging on the wall, easel right now. And then working on that sculpture. And then I'm working on another show in July. So
is this pretty standard for you as far as the way you work? Like you, and we've talked to multiple artists that always have, all kinds of projects going on at the simultaneously. That's the way you work as well? Yeah,
I usually have about 4 to 5 different projects, but now I'm kind of changing the way I work a little bit more too. And things have gotten a lot more organized. And also what I really want to do is start writing a book that will go with each collection. So I want to have a Rollertopia book too that explains like the history of the planet. And because I did a show called Fruitland, and Fruitland was all about this country called Fruitland. And I created a religion for it. I created an economic system. There's a political structure. I created all this stuff. And, then people came to see the show, and it's this bright, colorful, happy show. But the whole story of it, people really didn't understand that there was this like expansive universe behind all the paintings on the wall. So, and then I did Autonation, and Autonation has the same thing as history. And there's a guy in the country who's like the richest man in the world. His name is JP Big Bucks, and it's just the whole story. So, but for the most part, this narrative lives in your head. It hasn't actually been written down somewhere. No, and so that's where I'm going to put my friend to task to write some of these ideas out, because the other story is about the one-armed lion tamer, which I've got it all in my head, this crazy story. And then there's a couple others that I'm working out too right now. So, because I want to do Namaste Land, which is like satire of American kind of spiritual materialism, and this whole kind of, saying namaste all the time, even though it really just means hello. And that kind of, American objectification of another culture and making. So basically it's this land where everybody is spiritually enlightened, and people from Autonation go there to get enlightened too for a price. And so I kind of want to use that as a way to make fun of that as well. It's so funny, man. I love it. We're so fucked up in this country. We really are. We have so many things that are backwards, and don't get me wrong, I love having the freedom and living in this country, but it really is. It's this whole fucked upness of, it's so hypocritical. Some of the things that we've seen it this past year for sure. It's been exaggerated tenfold by being in this particular situation. So I imagine this is like there's no end of like stuff that you can reference and riff on. Oh, well, I'm grabbing something off of this right here. Oh, it's too high up. Never mind. It's a book by Kurt Anderson called Fantasyland. Oh my God, that book. It's basically about why Americans are so messed up. And, essentially you think about it, the people that came to this country initially, they were suckers. They were the people who were like, oh, hey, you can come to the land of good and plenty and get rich. And so all these people get on a boat, they come over, and it's shitty. It's cold. Most of them starved to death. Most of them died. It was completely crappy. And they were all these people who were the lovers, the dreamers, you and me. And they come here and they build up these like utopian civilizations. And so our entire culture was built on this idea of utopianism and individualism. And so this whole idea, like, I could do it better, I can create my own world, it's just ingrained in our culture. And so it's no wonder you got people going, I'm not wearing a mask, it's all fake, it's the deep state. It's just the way it's ingrained in our culture. So, and I think that's really what I want to make fun of, that kind of aspect of Americanism.
It's crazy to me that we have become so divisive in this country. And, extract the politics out of everything, right? And extract religion, because those are two things that just fuck everything up when you insert those into the conversation, right? It's not that you can't have those conversations, but as Americans, and maybe it's a human thing too, but we like to draw this line in the sand. Everything is black and white. And we don't think out of like this very simple perspective of how things are, right? Mm-hmm. Like, how about just being a kind person, right? And think of others. Like wearing a mask, to me, it shouldn't be a Democrat thing or a Republican thing or anything else. It should be, I'm a good citizen and I care about my fellow man. And I want us to, evolve. And I want people to enjoy life.
I don't want to possibly kill you.
Right.
Because I don't know if I have the virus.
Yeah, I would feel terrible if I infected somebody because I didn't do what I deemed the right thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think, during the last election, I got all riled up on the social media, like posting about the election, getting not this last back in 2016. And I readily admit it, I probably got my mind fucked with by all the Russian shit that happened. Because I just went off the deep end with it. I was a complete moron online about all the politics and everything. And you're right, everything became black and white. And I think that at that time period, for like about a year and a half, I only made work in black and white after 2016. And it was because of that, because I really wanted to like drive it home that this was this. And I also got into this idea that the gosh darn internets, the social needs was messing with people's heads. And so I created this persona online of being this mad scientist. And I created this machine. So I made this sculpture that basically was a mind control machine. And so basically you would go, the idea I had, but I don't think it would ever happen in reality, is you'd set up this machine in a town square or something. And then people could go and spin the machine around. And then they would have a book that they were required by the law to carry with them. And in that book, it would tell them what exactly to post on social media based on how this sculpture moved. And they would tell them exactly what to post. So like one of the things, the positions of it was go to Machu Picchu, take a photo of yourself posing in front of Machu Picchu in a yoga pose and post blessed. And so it would say stuff like that. So I wrote a book that went with this sculpture to do this, to kind of like encourage people to do this. And I started thinking about this, though, is that the way that social media changed our behavior as a culture and the way that it's created such a division in our culture, to me, it's one of the most terrifying things that exists right now is social media. And I use it daily. I use it all the time. And I think it's probably one of the most destructive things for our civilization.
Have you seen the documentary Social Dilemma?
Yeah, it's terrifying to watch.
It left me with when I turned off the movie, I was like literally kind of freaked out about it. Like, oh my God, we're all going to die.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's for a lot of the things though, is like, I don't know why it even exists. And now they're talking about regulating it. Like, it's just like kind of like utility or something. Like, come on, just like, don't use it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But I definitely think they need to really have some kind of regulation, like against the use of algorithms that are intentionally designed to make people addicted to it, that are intentionally designed to alter behaviors.
Yeah.
To me, that's absolutely just terrifying. I think that neurologists, neuroscientists, and psychologists are basically hired on the staff to help determine how to manipulate people. It's disturbing.
It is disturbing.
And the big clue should be when most of the CEOs and high ups on certain platforms don't let their kids even have it.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
Like, no, you can't have a Facebook page, or you can't have a Twitter, you know? Yeah. That's funny.
I feel like it's like we're monkeys and we just got given the nuclear, that device. Like it's a scene out of Planet of the Apes or something crazy that, we're just, I don't know. At the same time, I'm optimistic because I think we'll see ourselves through this. But
hey, we met each other.
That's right. True.
So, and we find out that we're practically neighbors. So
I know we live like probably a mile and a half maybe away from each other.
Yeah. I just probably drove past your house a few hours ago today. So, yeah.
So you have a love-hate relationship with social media. Do you use it mostly to promote your art? Do you use it as a business tool mostly? How do you utilize it?
I use it for satire. And it's also part of my artwork. And it's like completely bonkers, but I don't do it as much as I used to. But for the longest time, everything that happened on social media was part of the artwork itself, like performance art. So it was basically part of the artwork in and of itself. To really understand the artwork, you almost had to be reading my Facebook feed. So, do you know that comedian Borat or Sacha Baron Cohen? Yes. Everybody's talking about that guy. But he went and studied buffoonery, and so did Zach Galifianakis in Paris, France, with this master buffoon clown. The guy's like the master buffoon clown. And so to get into his class, it's open audition. Everybody has to audition, and you have to make him laugh. And you only have 15 seconds to make him laugh. And and he blows a horn if you don't make him laugh. And so Zach Galifianakis walked out onto the stage and just stood there. And the master clown starts blowing the horn, and he just keeps standing there. and he made the guy laugh, because usually everybody just walked off. But that willingness to make a fool of yourself, to make kind of a satirical look at the world, is kind of what is at the heart of buffoonery clowning. And so I kind of took that attitude about buffoonery into my artwork, and this performative aspect that was in a virtual space, and intentionally kind of made my work part of what was happening online. And I think some people got it, that that's what I was doing, but other people just thought I was like, a crazy asshole. And that's fine too, because that's what you sign up for with when you decide that you're going to be the buffoon. So yeah.
I love that you're willing to put yourself out there, and I think I think that utilization of social media is perfect. It doesn't get any better than that, man.
It's the perfect place for the buffoon. I mean,
it's full of buffoons. I mean, you see that shit all day long.
But the difference is they don't think they're buffoons. Where he's I'm admitting I'm a buffoon.
Right. You're like, God damn, how can you believe that? Like I've seen shit on people's feed, on my feed that people have posted. Most of those people have gone away, thank God. But, I've seen so much stuff where I'm like, really? I thought you're a really intelligent person, but I don't know how you, how do you have to take a lot of acid to get to that place, or like, what is the deal, man?
So do we know if Donald Trump actually studied under the buffoon and this is all just performance art?
Oh my gosh, I would love it if that were true. Yeah, it's probably not, but yeah, that I just that, you know, and the style of buffoonery, clowning goes clear back to like ancient Rome, which is absolutely amazing to think that, you know, there's this style of clown that essentially was both like satirically, being politically satirical and, you know, socially satirical that far back. And I love it.
And that's the point. That's the point of the court jester too, is to make fun and for the king, but make fun of the absurdity of it all. So,
yeah. And I think right now more than anything, that's what we need. We need more laughter, more like making fun of ourselves and a willingness, because everybody's digging their feet into the sand about their political ideologies or their social ideologies. And they're not willing to just like take a step out of themselves and be like, hey, you know, 5,000 years ago, nobody's going to know that I gave a crap about that guy running through a red light right now. So let it go.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask you're very much, you have a routine. You already talked about that. Are you also very goal oriented? Do you have like short-term and long-term goals? These are things that I've started to ask in a few recent episodes about how the thought process.
It's weird because I also have this idea that ambition as an artist can get in the way of doing what the art wants you to do. So I tend to think of my artwork a lot of times as being this living thing that I'm working with. For me to have the gall to expect my artwork to give me something is kind of akin to, you know, you have this beautiful woman who loves and cares about you, and you're like, but what have you done for me? You know, and you're just, instead of saying, what can I do for you? And what can I do to? So I'm always looking at how I can, my ambition really, it really is squarely, I'm just trying to improve as an artist and improve my practice. And anything that happens outside of that, I just say it's gravy. But I don't really a lot of times seek out commissions or sales or anything like that. I'm just constantly working. But I've been able to sell quite a bit of work. And so I'm at this weird place where I don't really have much of a business model or an approach to that. And but that's, I think, also where the whole like kind of satire of the capitalist structure is like me wanting to learn about it and play with that idea too, and how to sell work and be part of that part of the art world as well. Because like everybody else, I like money. So
you are a capitalist?
No, not at all. But I mean, we have to have money to survive in this culture. So, you know, economic beliefs are definitely far from being a capitalist, but we need to have money to survive. So
you're under the thought of you just need enough money to have the freedom to be an artist and do what you love and do best. Yeah. And a lot of times I mess up opportunities because I'm so focused on work. You know, I'll see, hey, you know, would you be interested in working? We'd like to talk to you about a possible commission. And I hadn't checked my email for a month, or I haven't looked at my phone for like 2 weeks and saw that there was a text message from somebody saying, hey, we're trying to call you about this or that. And I'm like, oh, I keep my ringer off and I rarely look at my text messages. So I got lucky the other day when I called you. Yeah, because I saw that number and I was like, what the heck? I bet you, I thought maybe you were like my pastor or my therapist calling to berate me, you know? And so I was like, I'm going to take this. So
we are your therapist. So you were right. We did call. Yeah. It was your therapist. Yeah. So I get that. Here's how I look at what you're doing is you're serving your artwork, and you give basically, and we'll use a religious thing, you give faith that I serve my art, and in order to be better, the rest of it will solve itself. You know, manna from heaven will come in forms of money to pay my rent or whatever. But I'm not serving that. I'm serving my art to become a better artist.
Yeah. And like the show I did 2 years ago was with the Fruitland. I intentionally said none of this work is for sale. So not a single thing was for sale. And people came like, oh, they were asking how much something was. And I was like, nothing is for sale. And it was because the next show, Autonation, I wanted those paintings to be colonized by Autonation. And so they had to be painted over all of the Fruitland paintings. And so there was this whole like methodology to it. Now like my partner, she's quitting her job. And she's just going to manage my studio now and manage like the business aspect of my studio to make sure I'm not squandering opportunities and things like that. So
you're a lover of science fiction, and I assume you probably watch a lot of movies. I've seen you post stuff that, alludes to what our future could look like. Is there anything that you've read or seen that really inspires you, that is becoming a reality in our world that is inspiring your art?
Star Trek definitely inspires my art. But then also the book, everybody says, 1984 was so accurate, but I really think that our world is so much like Brave New World.
Oh my God, the Aldous Huxley book. Yeah.
Yeah. And because everybody is we're entertaining ourselves to death. We're so obsessed with distraction, a culture of distraction constantly. And I think that is actually more in tune with what's going on, because people are just happy, and if you keep people happy and satiated and entertained and inebriated and that type of thing, people are much more likely to not, march in the streets and have the incredible protests that we've been seeing this year and the changes that are happening because people are waking up. It's great.
It is great. And yet we're still monkeys with guns, right?
Yep. That's the most positive thing that's happened this year is all of the protests. And it's just been incredible. Absolutely incredible.
We were due,
I never thought I'd see it in my lifetime, and it's absolutely amazing to see. So
I concur. It's something that has to happen. We have to, at some point, you got to put your foot down, and you got to, people have to wake up. And I think we're seeing that awakening right now. You know what? I don't know how it's going to play out, but, there might be a lot more pain that has to come before we, kind of right this ship. But I do believe it'll happen.
But on the good side of it, too, is Biden has been elected. So now we can go back to celebrity gossip and talking about the hottest celeb news.
I can't wait. Really?
We can go back to scrolling through TikTok like for a couple hours each day, right?
Yeah. Most definitely. Yeah, I'm just tired of the constant 24/7 of who we have in the office. Yeah. 24/7. I quit watching the news because it was all about him. And, and how much they hated him. I mean, it was definitely.
Yeah. I was like, okay, I'm on the same page as you guys. And he's going to tweet something stupid today. Okay.
Yeah.
That's it. But
I want to talk a little bit about business before we let you go today. You mentioned commissions. Have you done a lot of commissions? You got one commission you said that's going on right now, right? Is that correct?
2 are in the works. So, and I treat them completely different than when I do, the work that I'm doing for, a narrative or a story or something. And so they're just a lot more process, detail, and checks and balances, and, making sure everything is done properly. And it's just, they're a lot more work for me. So, but I enjoy them.
How has 2020 been as far as selling art? Have you done pretty well? We've talked to a lot of artists that have. Yeah,
it's actually been one of the best years that I've had in probably about 3 or 4 years. So I've been consistently busy with a commission at least once a month. And, one of them I'm working on now, though, it's been like, it's not like something I can roll out in just 1 month. It takes a lot of work to put this together, the sculpture. But yeah, I've been consistently busy to the point where I've been having to schedule, like, okay, I can work on this after I get this, I can do this after that. So it surprised me because I didn't think it would be like that, just keeping busy. So yeah, I enjoy that.
Do you have a theory of why that is, that you've been so much busier this year?
I don't know. I think my work this year has changed radically. And I think that I was intentionally doing something for about 3 years. Well, no, 2 years, where I was trying to recreate the work of this specific type of Brazilian street art that I like. And it's done with wheat paste and that type of thing. And I was really obsessed with doing that. And I don't think it was the type of work that people would say, oh, that's really beautiful. I'd like to have that, in my home or my office or, part of my collection. But it's not, it wasn't that kind of work. It was really rough and crude. I enjoyed making it. I liked it a lot, but I don't think that it was something that people necessarily might have wanted. And I was fine with that too, because I was happy with the work.
You mentioned social media and that how you use it. Have you sold many pieces off, say Facebook or Instagram?
I sell work off of Instagram often. It'll be, a quick painting that I make or something, and I'll post it on Instagram, and then somebody will message me asking me if it's for sale. And I sell work like that once a month or something, and I'll just pack it up and send it off to somebody. Or if they're local, I'll just drive it over to them. So
nice. We hear that time and time again that Instagram is the way to go, and that people sell stuff off Instagram pretty frequently.
Yeah, and I don't even try. I just, I'm just like sharing what I make, and I just I like Instagram as an artist because there's a lot of artists that I know that use it, and it's just a good way to talk to other artists and see what other artists are doing. And there's a really sad trend on Instagram where a lot of artists aren't sharing work; they're sharing their personal life, and that's great. You got a personal life, but I want to know about your artwork.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm really interested in seeing what people are making.
So if people want to purchase a Peter Yumi original, where do they go to find you?
They can email me, or they can, a lot of times it'll just be a direct message on Instagram, or they'll email me from my website. And I usually sell it that way. And that's usually what happens that way. Or at a gallery, if I'm showing there, sometimes I'll sell, work that way as well. I joined a co-op recently because the main reason I did that is because I wanted to show Fruitland, but I also was getting kind of, I just wanted to do what I wanted to do and be in an environment where I could make what I wanted to make without having the restrictions of a commercial space or gallery or anything like that, and just have this kind of freedom. And I know, and I admit it, I'm a very eccentric person. And I think for a lot of galleries, that might be something that they'll be like, I don't know if we want to work with this guy. He's a little strange or something, And so I would much rather, in a lot of ways, just be kind of a lone wolf and just work on my own and be able to create the work that I want to make without having to, worrying about the gallery or something like that. So
I feel like what we're going through right now with the pandemic in 2020, I think that's a new business model for a lot of people. They don't want to be tethered necessarily, and they want to figure out how to, it's a kind of a DIY type of thing. They're figuring out, we talked to this artist, Matt Ciso, from Washington, D.C. He's done it all pretty much by himself. He had gallery representation early on, and an art rep, but he's figured a way how to not be tethered to the gallery system and still move a ton of art. And he has collectors all over the world. I think it's impressive. And I think, for independent minded people and people like yourself that doesn't fit into necessarily that idea of what you're supposed to be, being true to yourself, it's a good way to go.
Yeah. And that's kind of why changing the way I'm operating out of the studio too, so that the business side of it is going to be run by someone who knows how to run a business. and not somebody who's like thinking about, color combinations and, and not thinking about those types of things. So I think in 2021, I'm feeling optimistic that things will grow even more in the studio here for us, and we'll start, getting more shows out and more work out and growing what we're doing. And because I have a lot to say and I want to share it with the world. And that's really like what is driving me to work. And I want to, I like looking at my images. They make me happy. And I know people, when they see them, it makes them happy as well. And I want to share that with people. So
let me ask you this, Peter, real quick. We'll finish the podcast with this question. What do you think of the idea that this whole experience is actually just one big simulation? There's a theory about that. Elon Musk, I think, is one of those guys that, thinks that this could very well just be a big computer simulation of some sort.
I think it's pretty much, it's got to be true. And I was having this conversation last night with a friend of mine in Chicago. And I said to him, I'm not joking around. I think that somehow something happened when they launched that CERN laboratory thing and we shifted off into a different universe, but that's not really a universe. It's this computerized simulation. And so we slipped off into this other kind of, server basically. And in this server, this maniac salesman is running the country and everything just shifted slightly because everything is just so bizarre and strange lately. And I just can't make any sense of anything lately. So, and I love it. But it just feels like we're living in a comic book right now.
Yeah, it does.
I agree. I feel as I get older, like if you would have told me in my teens or 20s that really, if you just hang around long enough, you don't even need drugs anymore. It just gets more and more surreal each day. Yeah. Each passing day gets more and more surreal.
Yep. If you would have told 22-year-old Peter Yumi, hey, you're going to have a computer in your pocket that's 1,000 times faster than any computer you could ever imagine right now. And I'd be like, what the fuck ever? I've never imagined any of this stuff existing. The world is just turned so like sci-fi and weird. And it really does feel like we're living in the future a lot of times with how strange everything is.
I agree. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Peter, for being on the podcast today. I really appreciate you giving us 3 hours of your time this afternoon. If people want to see your work, they can go to your Instagram page. What is your Instagram page?
That's my name, Peter Yumi, Yankee Unicorn Macaroni India. And also I've got a website, it's peteryumi.com, but I never update it. And that's really the best way to look at me online.
And you mentioned a couple things that you have in the works for shows for 2021. Do you have set dates for those yet?
For 2021, at the end of April, I'll have a show at Pirate Contemporary, and January 9th at Alto with Alina Gunderson. You should follow her. So I'll have those two shows. And then there's a show in the works in Sao Paulo, Brazil in July, but we're still working out the details because of COVID and everything. So nice. We'll see about that. So it was supposed to be this July 2020, but it got postponed. And so we're looking at doing it this July. So
awesome.
Right on. I'll make sure that I have all that information in the episode notes for this week, along with Peter's social media links and his website.
Thanks.
It's been a pleasure, Peter.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it, guys. We'll talk to you later, neighbor.
All right.
For the Tenet Podcast, I'm Todd Pearson.
And I'm Wes Brown.
Have a great week.